Previously on Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet. So she could actually sit at this thing by herself with her hand on this kind of plastic disc.
Wow.
Like she started it obviously with a friend, but it was just whipping around like and would spell out, you know, all this kind of spirit dictation. Literally, as I wrote about that third line, I just suddenly felt really weird. And I was like, oh my God, I think it's happening to me. We walk back into that room and just get knocked to the floor. Like just walking and be like, ugh, like crazy robot would be like, ugh, down on the ground, like, with how much energy there was. Everyone has a special gift. Mine, the circle of light. They speak through me, and they're here to assist the planet's evolution to a more enlightened space. And for some reason, they chose me, a raunchy comedian, to be their vessel. I used to be secretive about my ability, but now it's time to come out of the cosmic closet, and you should too. My name is Georgia Jean, and these are my crazy stories. Before I opened up, I was totally taken by a couple of sort of charlatan beachside psychics. I was really like, you know, buying sheets, candles. I mean, in the end, we just realized she was probably like furnishing her trailer out in the desert and stuff. You know? Hey there, willing travelers down the rabbit hole. Welcome back to Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet. I am Georgia Jean from circleevolution.com, and this is my lovely co-host,
Melissa from the Mars Lab.
Good. And I want to remind everybody listening out there is don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe. Rate. Review. Tell everyone you know. Even if they're not into it. Maybe you want to help some people's brains expand. Yeah. Open their minds a little. Maybe if you've got a little bit of a cosmic skill weirdness and it's hard for you to just come out and say, hey, I hear dead people, or hey, I've, you know, got this, that, and the other. You can just slide this podcast go, hey.
It's a conversation starter.
It's a conversation starter.
So what did you like about it?
Yeah, or look, these people have these abilities. I'm not the only one. I tell you, actually, in my dating life, which we will get into more of that, the TV show Sense8 has been very helpful for me to sort of explain to people, just in general, people who I don't really know how to open-minded they are, or they just can't understand having energy connections and things like that. I can say, well, you can watch that show Sense8, and then you'll have a little bit of an idea of why I can feel things that are going on the other side of the planet. Or I'm like,
Sense8 on Netflix.
Sense8 on Netflix. That praise be to the Wachowski siblings for all they've done.
I don't know who that is.
The makers of The Matrix.
Okay.
And Sense8. And
I told you I
Cloud
just watched
Atlas.
The Matrix for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so good.
I know.
So good. They're pretty out there, the siblings.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they really speak openly about having spiritual or multidimensional events, because their movies and Sense8, I mean, I watch those things and I'm like, oh my God, they are really in a entertainment way addressing what is all this information that I receive about what's going on with the planet. You know, I think in Sense8 you've got these people who are sort of hybrids of sort of a little bit of a different consciousness, which is where we're going to get into all of that, like all our little star seeds and crystal kids and all that sort of thing, that we're, you know, kind of a blended kind of energetic ethnicity in a way, not just, just not just straight up human consciousness. But that's getting pretty down the rabbit hole to just open up today. So, well, you know, but Sense8's a great show. I'm so grateful for these big shows and movies and people who are putting stuff out there that's really helping to stretch people's minds. And hopefully this will be a little bit of a part of it. Yeah. So help more people come out of the cosmic closet and not be afraid to say, yeah, I channel spirits, or yeah, I have the dead people come, or yeah, I, whatever it is, like have crystal vortexes open up in my nostrils. I don't know. Everybody's got different things going on. Wouldn't that be great to have a powerful nasal crystal vortex and just, I don't know. I don't know what it would do, but
I don't either.
I think there's more practical uses.
Okay, so assuming everyone has listened to episode 1 already, that was, your, the circle's coming out.
Yeah, the circle's coming out.
15 years ago. So 15 years ago to now, tell me what you've been doing and to, what brought you to do this podcast? 2 questions. Right. I know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, because when the circle came through and they were really like, boom, you're going to reach millions of people and you're going to do all this stuff. And when you have, when you're opening up and you're becoming a channel for something, a big part of the job that you have is that you have to clear your filters. You have to clear your mind's kind of projection on this energy.
Sure.
And that's why doing self-healing work really is probably the most important part of doing this work. And I think part of what gives my industry a bad reputation is there's people out there who've got energy skills and abilities, but they haven't really addressed their own ego and they haven't really healed things. And so they get distortions, or they're actually kind of manipulating their energies. Like, again, before I opened up, I was totally taken by a couple of sort of charlatan beachside psychics, the psychics down at Venice Beach and stuff like that. And, you have them in New York, and you have all these, these people who are, they kind of lure you in with like a $5 palm reading. Yeah. And then
they see how aglow your eyes are.
Yeah. And they're like, ooh, and there's like, I had this lady, you could totally go with track with this lady, down at Venice Beach. And she did have some abilities, right? And look, I don't want to say this woman was out of integrity, because I don't know. She was a Venice Beach psychic, but she read a couple of things correctly about me, and no doubt it was probably about some dude or whatever, as usual. But yes, I go to psychics too. I'm not perfect.
That's my love life.
So no, but this is before my event, right? So she so she read something pretty accurately, and then she was like, come and she was like, we can do some energy work, and I'm going to build like a crystal wand and then take it out to my trailer in the desert and do a ritual for you, and then that will bring you with this person, and then it'll be like $300.
Right, but it'll only cost.
It'll cost. And then she'd be like, you need you have to bring me a set of purple sheets because you and your best friend are too close, and I have to cut the sheets so you can separate from her, and then create the new cosmic love bed with this person or whatever it was. I can't remember. And she'd be like, and along with the sheets, I'm going to need $400, or it was like something about my career. And I totally got suckered. I was really like, buying sheets, candles. I mean, in the end, we just realized she was probably like furnishing her trailer out in the desert and stuff.
This will do just fine.
But she read me right. And look, I know they have like the psychic mobster rings in New York, where they have a pretty big kind of, they have a system, same thing, bring you in with a $5 hand reading. Then the next thing you're finding about the curse of, Tutankhamun's, like toenail jam, and that you've got to clear that and they keep building up the money, like 5,000, it's like kind of a pyramid scheme of belief, because you're putting your faith in this. And I remember the lady had given me a bag of crystals, and not crystals like nice crystals that we're into, but like bath crystals or something, like these blue bath some cheap bag of Bed Bath & Beyond bath crystals or whatever. I've been like, you got to take these bath crystals, they weren't crystals, they were magic crystals. Take these and burn 3 of them and do something. And then, obviously like some entity or something that I had bad going on, my curse would lift or whatever. And it was when I was using the blue bath salt I'm in my bedroom, right? And because you already have kind of like invested a bit with someone, then people have a hard time stepping back, And that's why in New York or in other places, people get like people have been busted for like taking people for like $50,000, $100,000 on this kind of these schemes. There's like cosmic psychic pyramid scheme, So, and the more you've invested, the more then you've got to go, oh my God, I just got taken. I'm going to stop. Like, where do you go? So that experience, I was using the crystals, the bath crystals, and I was like, I don't really think this is, I don't think this is real. So when I had my event, but a couple of things that came out of that. So here's where I want to put a caveat on being really cynical about that. That lady she did introduce this idea to me that I didn't have before, that things could be worked energetically in some way. Like I had done the past life regression stuff, and I'd had a bit, but I was still pretty much like basic, your 5 physical senses kind of gal. And it sort of introduced this idea that you could move energy in some way beyond like just my physical actions of, performing of working and performing could kind of create my reality. So I think in a weird way, there was something helpful that it did open my mind, but it was just a little bit Connie feeling. Yeah. And so that always, for me, because I was a, broke ass comic, that was a lot of money for me. And that gave me a very big sense of, I feel like, ethics about how I work with people and how much I charge and what I recommend to do. Because actually, honestly, even when I first moved to LA, like one of my first jobs, desperate, was I worked on Miss Cleo's Hotline. And legitimately, and there's a lot of people who do online psychic work now, and I think they're legitimate. Like I actually work with a guy in Brazil when I need to get some energy work done. He lives in Brazil, and I met him I was doing a dial psychic reading. Okay. So, but I met this guy, and I could feel straight away his energy was legitimate. Yeah. Because I'm energy sensitive now, so I could tell it was legit. And now, and I've worked with him for years actually. So I don't want to disparage all psychics or all people who are working in the kind of energy field who use these kind of modern technology ways. There's definitely legitimate people who are skilled using these things. I don't think it's the best way to work by any stretch of the imagination, but they're valid. I've worked on them now as well. But when I first moved to LA, and I could read the tarot cards, right? I wasn't woo-woo, but I could read the tarot cards, and I got a job working on the Miss Cleo's Hotline. And they were straight up, you showed up there and they were straight up, just keep them on the phone for as long as you can. Yeah. Tell them they've got a curse. Tell them there's a black, dark cloud hanging over them, and they need this thing, and just keep. And they were charging, $3 at that time. It was this is like around 2000 or whatever. It was like $2, $3, $4 a minute, which actually isn't much these days for that kind of call. Wow. But in those days it was a lot.
A minute is nothing.
And people would just call up desperate, they were so desperate. And I would legitimately try and read, and I'm like shuffling my cards and trying to read, based on the cards, which I could do. Like I had been reading, you don't have to be woo-woo energetic to be able to read and interpret tarot cards. But I just felt so bad for these people. And I really, and I still dislike working that way. I'd much rather do session-based work. And my recommendation to people is that if you are reaching out into this world and you want to do energy work or do, go to a psychic or start to open up, like if you're not, particularly if you're not energy sensitive or whatever, do your research. It's like there's good lawyers and there's bad lawyers.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that law is terrible.
Yeah.
And again, and I want to bring a real discussion to, because more and more people are developing these skills and these abilities, that it is in many ways, it's a trade and a practice.
Yeah. And
if you develop an ability, then, and if especially if you're going to work in it, it is your, by integrity, you have to work your trade.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, hey, yeah, I'm a doctor now. I got this great Halloween costume and it says Dr. Feelgood right here and I'm ready to give some exams.
Yes.
You have to, you have to work your craft. So think about like a musician, language. And actually very much it is like learning a new language. You have to train your brain to now interpret non-physical signals, like signals that are generally considered outside the range of the normal people's like hearing or senses. Just because you can't pick up and interpret a frequency doesn't mean it isn't there, because you can't hear a dog whistle, and that doesn't mean that isn't there. Like you can see a dog respond to a dog whistle and go, oh well, there's a response, but
you don't speak that language. But you don't speak that language.
But you don't speak that language. So just because you can't hear it doesn't mean the dog's not hearing it. So, but we've got to work with our dog whistles and get better. And I really like to work with people regularly. Like I do readings. I do. Did you just say do? It's getting a bit too mature then for a second.
I'm glad you addressed
sorry, I keep knocking the thingamajiggy. So no, I do.
We know.
No. I execute tarot readings for people because I realize for some people that I call it like the tarot reading is the gateway drug. It's where they're at. It's what they're ready for. And if they can come to me for a tarot reading and I can, in that reading, impart some of the wisdom stuff that I've got from the circle, because maybe they're not ready to hear this whole like mega rabbit hole kind of, hey, we're going to bend your matrix and this. But if I can just take some of that and give someone a 15-minute tarot reading, and in fact, I keep in Brooklyn, where I used to live, I keep I hope I don't get in trouble with Google Maps, but I keep my old business address there because I get a lot of low-income people who are looking for guidance, and like they're probably not going to be able to afford to come to the circle, do a session with the circle, which just by its nature, because they can't do that many of them, costs more. But they can, if they can afford a $15-minute tarot reading, which isn't that much, then I can kind of bring the energy to them and help to like open things up for them a little bit. And you struggle a lot with, like, personally I do, because I had those experiences of really being ripped off. Like, how do I, get not ripped off, but sort of kind of
take for a little ride.
Got to take a little brum, brum. And there's no guarantees in this business. And I'm very, honest about that, because I also work with people who have a lot of chronic illnesses and stuff like that, which is one of the specialties that I work. And when people come to me and they've got like, late stage cancer, I'm not going to say, we're going to cure you. I'm going to say, we're going to be with you on this journey and help optimize this to make it, as a journey of growth, and to make it easier on some level. It could be mentally, it could be emotionally, and it can definitely be physically. Like, we do get physical results, but I would never go, with something that is that serious.
Right.
And not, be like, I'm going to cure you, and keep throwing the cash at me, and we've got to.
Yeah.
So having ethics in the business. So I really recommend that people go and get referrals. Get referrals from people. Like who do you know, when someone's had a good reading, or, you know, you can even do the little dial psychic things, and you can find usually that there are some people who obviously are the real deal, and then, you know, maybe build a relationship with that person. But I think there's something about building the relationship. And I personally, because yes, I do the little readings because it's a beginning point for people, and maybe that's the only point. But when we're really doing the work, I want to transition people into, it's more of a therapeutic relationship. Like nobody goes to a therapist once and goes, okay, childhood wounds be gone, you know, and have that expectation.
Right.
And so it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. So, you know, relationship building is part of it. So in terms of building the skill set to work with people and building the trust and building and doing your inner work, that you are really clear of your filters, you know, and so you can hold a neutral space for people. That's a really big thing, because if somebody comes in and they've got a story that might be hitting some of your buttons, and energetically, if you can't hold a kind of neutral space,
right,
and suddenly like whatever, like just
daddy issues,
whatever, it's like leave that guy, and it's got nothing to do with like something that's happening to you or whatever, that you have to keep working to clear the filters and become. So when you're looking at, I also recommend that anyone who's doing this energy work, that if you're paying for something, if you're paying, you know, a reasonable amount for it, that you're working either in person with them, you know, that you're actually having a service. Like, but just be aware if someone's like, give me $800, I'm going to remove the curse. I've got, you know, I need to buy, a toothbrush and a golden, cheese stick. I don't know. So I'm going to also, need another $200 in supply money.
Yeah.
Like, work with people who are working with you. And if there's, like, I have on my website, I have recordings of the circle, but that's kind of like a tangible, anything that isn't working with me is still a very kind of tangible product, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Because there are people out there who do attunement things, and they're like recorded attunements. And I know that recordings hold frequencies in them. I know that for sure. So even this has got frequencies in it, so watch out. But no. But just that, like, that is something to really think about if you're moving, because often too, when people start getting drawn to this world, they do start going for readings. They do start being drawn to energetic things, and some of those early experiences can really shape how the integrity of maybe how you'll develop, and also how you consider your approach as a business, as a person, because I am a person that does this as a business. Which I actually think avoids a lot of the weird space that you can get into with, I charge specific prices. I'm very like, you can do this or not do this. Yeah. There's none of that like structure, that kind of culty kind of structure around it that is also, I think we'll have to talk about that another day. Yeah. So referrals are good. In fact, and when you asked about how did this podcast came around, so when the beings were coming through, they were like, you're going to reach millions of people. And so one of the filters I had to look at was, am I really going to reach millions of people? Or is that still me as a stand-up wanting to be in the spotlight and reach millions of people?
Yeah, and like you didn't know how to interpret that?
I didn't know how to interpret it, and if that was really the case. And then as I have progressed along the journey, honestly, it's a very humbling journey. You go through a lot of spiritual initiations to stay in integrity.
Right.
Each
You're
time.
Still working on yourself.
You're still working on yourself. And I don't want to say you're being tested, but if there is something out of alignment in your ego, as you're bringing higher and higher frequencies coming in, that stuff shows up real fast. And it's just, it's like Vesuvius. And And some of it's your personal stuff, but as you're actually kind of going into like these different levels of consciousness initiation, you're also processing this sort of collective energy of the planet. And we'll get more into that kind of planetary healing business bit. Woo. But
that's the woo and woo.
That's yeah, we're talking big woo there. That's a big woo. Big woo. If you want to read about the big woo right now, you can head on over to the recordings on my website. But yeah, so having integrity and looking for integrity. Oh, so I was like, okay. And
how did you end up in New York?
Well, that was just that's like another. Yeah, that one's going to take me off the tangent too much, but we will discuss that because I think I was pretty much sent there on a mission, right? Yeah, I think I was energetically kind of positioned there, but we'll talk about that one in a little bit. But doing the podcast. So as I've been doing this work, a lot of it I've been, even though I do this very high quality work, it wasn't like I kind of suddenly got sprung out there into public life with it. And part of me is, like I said, wasn't really sure that I want to live in this identity of some kind of spiritual leader, because you also see how these people fall a lot. And, there's some been some big, there was that guy, James Ray, who was on The Secret, and he, he took people in what's it called? Like a sweat lodge, and people died in that, these people. Yeah. It's like, there's some stuff that you kind of like, oh my God, like the responsibility of having people put you in some kind of place of authority, of spiritual authority over them, is really, it's a big deal. Yeah. And I don't actually think that is what it is, because and I think part of the thing I like about channeling is that the beings pretty much do most of the work. I do some readings and do stuff, but most of the work is when people come to me as a client, they work with the circle, and I'm just the conduit, which means that I still get to live as a human being who's actually learning from them just as everybody else. I'm just maybe a little bit advanced because I hear so much of their stuff all the time, or every client session, every conference call that we do. I'm getting it, and I kind of will synergize it and teach it. But I really had this thing like, please don't put me on some kind of pedestal because I've got access to these beings. Yeah. Because a lot of the times when people are a little bit lost or whatever, they're looking for that pedestal healer as well, or that that guru thing,
right? Looking for someone to look up to,
and someone to actually assign be like, here, you make me whole, like your teachings, I will follow you, and and that's when you get into like cult world and and these sort of more manipulative churches and all this kind of stuff. And it's, so I had a lot of repulsion about that, on the one hand, like really wanting to get the circles work out, but also being like, God, I kind of don't like, ew. Yeah. I don't really want people to look at me that way. And then I'm expected to live some kind of lifestyle that suits their idea of what a spiritual being is doing. And I'm not that person.
Right.
I skydive, I drink Malibu. Yeah. I like to swear still. I will behave professionally when we're working together. I'm not going to be skydiving and drinking Malibu. Yeah, but and I do my job like same thing. Like a lawyer's going to show up and do their job.
Yes.
Right. Maybe. No. But a doctor's going to show up, do their job. But then a doctor can go out and have a couple of glasses of wine with dinner.
Yeah,
be swiping on Tinder, like living a normal life. And really this spiritual work, quote unquote, is to help people live better lives,
right?
Individually and collectively. So I felt this sort of thing because the circle had said that so long ago about reaching a lot of people. And then I was like, okay, but I think maybe what's actually happening is a lot of people who come to me are reaching a lot of people. When I lived in New York and I worked at the Quest bookstore, it was around the corner from the UN. So I would often have people from diplomats from the UN and things like that come in and have sessions. And, if I can just read something and give them one bit of something that shifts their consciousness a little bit, and then they take it back to their country or their whatever world they're affecting, it's that's awesome. Right. I don't have to be like up on stage like, I mean, the comedian me probably thinks that big energy thing of audience is definitely like fun. Yeah. But it's not sort of, and I actually do a lot of my work now primarily over the phone, and I have very little physical contact with people for the same reason of being wary of people's projections onto you. When they see you in person, they want you to look this way, or they think you should look this way. They might not actually receive the work as well if I'm like letting down the image of what a spiritual healer should look like. Yeah. So I'm just, even talking as we are on this, but I think it's important that people understand that, because again, more and more people are going to be developing these abilities. They already are. Right. At the time, because then when the circle came in, they were like, this is, you can do this. And then they also were like, anybody can do this. And of course, in my mind, I was like, because at the time there was only a few sort of big name channelers as far as I knew. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be like the open mics of channeling. Like everybody's going to be opening up, and there's just going to be all these channelers. Like you're going to wait for your 5 minutes of stage time to channel your bit about cosmic consciousness. Yeah. Oh God, my life now. Can't I just be special for a minute? No. But the fact of the matter is, there are tons of people like me out there doing this now. Yeah. And they're all bringing in different pieces. And it has broadened a lot. So we have to have like a discussion of how this can be. But yeah, so what actually happened was that somebody who one of my clients, and I'm going to let, she's given me permission to talk about this, is a wonderful woman, Kiki Tyson. And she's like Mike Tyson's wife, came to me like years ago through a referral. And she would have me, I can't remember if it was me or the circle, we would read her projects that she had kind of on the boil, like for, like entertainment projects. I mean, she's just a wonderful, wonderful, lovely, beautiful lady. And she had different entertainment projects that she'd be looking at. And she'd say the names, and you just feel the energy like, yes, no, yes, boom. And then I remember clearly that she was like, okay, there's this one called the brick. And I just got this massive, like, whoom. I'm like, oh yeah, that one's definitely going to happen. That one's booming. That one's the one to go for out of this slew. Yeah. And then I or me or they or whoever it was who was doing the session with her was like, is there like a director for that, or who else is on board? And she's like, Spike Lee. So it's like, well, of course that one's going to happen. Yeah. Like, because he's already got that big energy to make things happen. Right. And the project, and you were tapping into that. Yeah. Yeah. And the project was about her husband's early life and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. And I think they have gone on to do more work together. So sometimes you're reading something and you feel the energy, not just of that particular thing, but also of everything that's going to come afterwards. So maybe it's just what else unfolds between them and that sort of thing. So, so Kiki just asked me to make this podcast for her because she's doing she's creating a network, or has already created this network of podcasts. And I was like, yeah, this is like cool, because I do want to talk about this stuff. Yeah. And also, there is some format for it to kind of get out there to bigger audiences. Because I have like toiled away and done a lot of stuff, and I have this massive library of over 500 recordings at the Circle. And, I've got certain levels of marketing skills. But there is something, maybe that is, it is time to let's kind of get out there a little bit more. And some other intuitive people who I go to, who I trust, had been saying, you need to start doing the podcast thing. But I think that this is happening now and not then, because between now and 15 years, that we have a massive body of work. We have some very advanced energy skills that have evolved. And I have personally been through multiple levels of initiation where I think this is super fun to do it, but my younger self would have been much more attached to the outcomes of it, whereas I really love my life. I live in Hawaii, I skydive, I've got a beautiful circle of friends, family I love. I'm good. When I was doing showbiz, it was all about this is going to make me happy, or I'm going to get this, and when I get the sitcom, and then I'll be powerful, and I'll not powerful I probably did want to have the power to date the hotties, but but that my dreams could make other people's dreams come true. Right. I would have this sort of thing, but in the meanwhile I was going to starve and live off the glass of water and sacrifice everything for comedy, and it really doesn't work that way. It really is. It's kind of frequency first, manifestation second. If you're happy, if you feel, pretty joyful in your life, if you feel, that you're content, then the things that appear to be a projection of that start to come to you rather than the other way around. So that's kind of how it's why this podcast is kind of happening now.
And does it have anything to do with this shift in consciousness?
Totally. And can
you break that down a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because also, so since the circle, boofed into my life, kicked the barn doors down and said, okay, we're doing something different now. Because I was doing, I'm doing comedy, and now I'm what am I supposed to be doing? I've got this,
So you just had to surrender when that happened, right?
Honestly, I was pretty stoked. I was this is cool. I always had a very, all this energy stuff is cool. Yeah. And this is a big thing for people who are going through some kind of energetic awakening, is there's definitely some people who have a lot of fear around it. And I know we've talked about this, that you're a bit, being at that gateway, scared of it. Yeah. And I will say, having been through it, we've talked about this, what the initiations into the next levels of consciousness is, or being able to work with energy, how it's going to push everything up that's within you. Bless you.
I ate it. I ate my sneeze.
She was so cute. She did a secret sneeze in her blankie then. Hey guys, so I hope you're finding this really interesting, how to navigate the world of psychics and different kinds of practitioners in this cosmic craftery. But if you want to learn how to trust yourself and how to start building a trusting relationship to developing your own gifts, and what I did when I had my event to really trust this stuff with the Circle of Light was happening, subscribe now and make sure you check out upcoming episode 4, where we're going to go way more in depth about that, building a personal relationship with your new abilities. And if you're ready to hear some Circle of Light, you haven't caught any of their recordings yet, make sure you trot on over to circleevolution.com. Check out what I'm doing over there with the Circle of Light. And
if you want to learn more about what I do, go to themarslab.com.
So much cool stuff going on. Check it out, and we'll see you on the next episode of Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet.